Hi, my name is Shalon, and I'm here to help you find your next favorite book and your next favorite author. And I am so excited to have Tanvier Peart here. She is a future bestselling author and advocate who crafts romances filled with humor and down bad cinnamon rolls. Her upcoming release, Big Trouble in a Little Mafia, is a dark rom-com that's filled with laugh out loud moments, a little kidnapping, and a steamy connection between an HR manager and a mafia boss. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. But I would love to start with your author origin story. So, what would folks be surprised to learn about how you started as an author?
Maybe that I wasn't planning to be an author. I know some people are like, "Oh, I've been wanting to do this since childhood," and I'm like, "That's great. I want to be a tornado chaser." Like, I wasn't thinking about writing no books,
Mhm.
but it came in summer 2020 where we had like a lot of the summer uprisings, and I was outside trying to do like the advocacy and the good trouble disruption. I was finishing up my master's in public policy while working full time doing some advocacy, and I was burnt out at both sides, just looking like an ashy Q-tip that got lit on fire. And that was the first time that I went to therapy, and I got a Black woman therapist. And she was like, "You need to heal yourself, especially as an empath. You have to learn how to unplug and plug into things that give you joy." And so I was like, you know what? I've been reading policy stuff for work and for school. I'm going to go back to romance because I remember reading Zane growing up, and my mama had the Terry McMillan books, which I guess is more women's fiction. But I started reading a lot of romance because my therapist was like, "Okay, well, when you read, like, don't read the Malcolm X autobiographies and all the things." So I fully immersed myself back into the realm of romance like late 2020. And then January 2021, I had like 3 weeks before my final semester of grad school. And that's when I wrote the ugliest first draft of what would be the 7 month itch. And then I sat on it for 2 years, and my husband was like, "Okay, well, when you gonna put this out?" And so that's how it started. And writing, I will say that romance I read almost exclusively Black indie romance, and it's been a safe space, and a place of like healing and a place of joy. And it feels good to contribute to it, but also writing helps me like take off everything that is happening outside of the world. So I'm appreciative of the space that we have for people's imagination and creativity. And then I'm thankful that I sort of like found a little bit of my lane to block out some stuff when I need to and just dig into nonsense.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's something about empaths that end up in service positions or like advocacy work or things like
Yeah.
that. So it's very easy to burn out or like put everything into like what you're doing in like a helping profession. What was the catalyst from reading romance to actually writing romance? Like what made you want to write the 7 month itch initially?
I think just because I had time.
Mm,
And that's actually the only book of mine to date where I sat in front of a computer to write. I feel
mm,
like I'm known now because I talk about it a lot for writing and composition notebooks,
mhm.
which shout out to like the ghostwriter people from the 90s if you remember what they did with the notebooks.
Yes.
Um, but like I am more of a movie person, a movie girly. I used to go to the movies almost weekly with my dad since I was little, and he used to have me smuggling the Burger King in my armpits and in the coats and all of that. And so I really enjoy film and how it makes me feel. And so I saw the 7 month itch specifically with that, just like different scenes. And I was like, okay, well, let me just put this to paper. And then that's how it happened. So a lot of free time before stuff revved up, and then just sort of playing around in my imagination.
Mhm. Well, I love that. And your imagination was definitely running wild in that story. It's just so fun. Because if you have a concept of folks who've broken up and then they meet each other at a singles retreat, Like that's just comedy right there. Of like actually like what could happen. So you mentioned like sitting on it for 2 years and then revisiting it. What are some things that you learned from like moving from being a reader to actually trying to publish the work independently?
Oh goodness. The more you read, the sharper it'll help your craft, and also time will do its thing. I know some people don't believe in like reading the genre that they're in when they're writing. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I exclusively read romance, and then also there are certain romance authors that have certain cadence or like a knack for talking about like either plot or describing a scene or characters or emotions and stuff. And so I really tap into them. So like find the people that you like, not to take from them, but to like be inspired. And editors are important for sure. For
Mm-hmm.
sure. And you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna stumble, and you just keep going.
Mm-hmm. And when you're thinking about the stories that come to you, I'm sure you have plenty of ideas that you haven't written yet, or like they're stored somewhere. How do you decide which ones you want to tackle more immediately versus ones where you're like, let me wait on this one?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't write anything down, which runs counter to my September Virgo. But my rule of thumb for writing a story is that if I see a scene that's related to the bigger picture of it, and if I see it more than 3 times, I could catalog it in my head and I'll
Mm-hmm.
get back to it. I've been writing, um, what do you call it? Now I'm like brain farting. Series. So like the Chance at Love series,
Mm-hmm.
I knew, okay, I'm going to have to like get these books out before I jump. But one of the things that I try to do is if I am writing a series, and my series will all be interconnected, so you can pick them up in whatever order, I always love to throw in a random standalone every 2 books. So, like maybe you'll get the first book of the series, and then I'll do a standalone. And then I'll do 2 more books of the series, and the series might be done. If not, you'll get a standalone, and then 2 books, and then a standalone, which is what I'll do for the Rugby rom-com series. But yeah, no rhyme or reason. Just because I like to mix it up.
And is that scheduled to help support your creativity going in and out of series, or do you think that like helps as far as like people getting more like engaged with your work?
Ooh. Well, I hope the second, but definitely
Yes.
for the first, because I am a big mood reader. So even I get bored with my own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I only like to read it, but so many times before I put it away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I'm appreciative of standalones. So the rugby series, we have the Madam and Her Hooker book 2, which will come out in December of this year. Then 2027, I only will release 2 books, and those will both be the rugby rom-com. And then 2028, one of the books, I'm going to dabble in horror rom-coms, but we're going to make it my first holiday book too. So
Okay.
just to
That'll
mix it
be
up.
fun. And and you might still be thinking of this, when you're thinking of horror, are you thinking of like how you're going to weave in like the supernatural elements as it
It's
relates
going to
to
be
the
slasher.
holiday? Okay.
There'll be
Gotcha.
a killer with a knife, and some
Got
people getting
it.
cut up.
I was like, what kind? Because we could go a few different ways with horror depending on like what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to do some with a haunted house, but it would likely be very unserious that I don't think people would entertain it.
No, I would love it.
Okay.
I would definitely read it. That sounds so fun. Well, let's talk a little bit about your upcoming release. So we have Big Trouble in Little Mafia, and this one is slightly darker. I know you describe it as a dark rom com, and maybe there's something wrong with me because I was like, oh, this is a good time. I love
Thank
it,
you.
you know. So for those that are unfamiliar, in this book we have Bianca, who is a very overworked HR manager who's been like pouring a lot into this company that doesn't deserve her. And
Mhm.
she decides enough's enough. She's going on the trip she's been dreaming of. She decides to go to
Mhm.
Italy. She's enjoying, her time there. And things take a turn when there's a case of mistaken identity and she's kidnapped.
Yeah.
And she ends up meeting Salvatore, who she decides to nickname Benny because she does not
Mhm.
care about his feelings, who's a mafia boss. But then they have this irresistible chemistry going on. I would love to know what prompted you to want to do like a more darker turn in the rom com, but it's still full of laughs. Like I was cackling the whole way through.
Well,
So,
good.
yeah.
Um, the short answer is, and I might have to sit on that lady's couch. I wanted to kill some people, so I figure like that's the dark part of the
Yes.
rom com because I know some people might be like, "This isn't dark." Well, it's not meant to be super dark. And also,
Yeah.
by the way, I'm in my unfinished basement, in the spirits of Big Trouble in the Little Mafia since she
Yes.
was put in the basement as well, and she was not happy. Um, but yeah, I wanted to unalive some people and make it funny. And for whatever reason, I think I thought about going on a solo trip and like running away from my family. And then I started thinking about, well, what if, taking is real? And what if somebody gets me with like a syringe? And so I just went down that rabbit hole. So yeah, dark themes, but we make it funny. And I did want to write a mafia romance at some point. So I figured we're just going to be a first time for dark rom com and mafia romance and just fuse it together and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I definitely think it worked. I was laughing. I was trying to debate if this one was my favorite one or One Night Stand. Like they're kind of like neck and neck for
Mm.
me for different
Okay.
reasons.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it. And I think this one is also like a great summer read because she's on vacation, she's enjoying
Hmm.
herself, and then things take a
Yes.
turn. I would love to know how you were thinking about balancing like the humor that's like in all of your work, but with also the darker elements that are happening. So that way it feels like something that you would write as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah, it was tough because with all of my books, I don't outline the plot. So I don't know what's going to happen until I sit down with to a blank page and write. So that's already like it gives me freedom, but it's working against me.
Mm-hmm.
And um Benny is my first morally gray character I've written, and I only write cinnamon roll men, and so that was difficult. So I ended up reading a lot more dark romance for sort of guardrails to know like how far to take it because like you do have dark themes, but the rom-com has to be very heavy
Mm-hmm.
for the balance. And this is going to sound morbid, but like chapter 2 opens up with somebody who's tied up and he's going to get filleted and like cut up into pieces and give the bones to the dog. But I was like, how to make that funny? And so, with some of the scenes where I knew I was going to kill people, I'm like, okay, there might be a blood splatter or like somebody's son on your forehead, but it could be dialogue, it could be situation. A lot of it was reaction because a lot of it happened to Bianca. So, like, how she reacted to stuff, also how she talked back, like in a kill container when they're interrogating her. So, I tried to balance that with moving the plot so that we just weren't hanging or focusing on dialogue just to make it funny, but just what are they reacting to and then like what are they also forced to do because she catches a couple bodies in this book as well.
She does. She
Yeah.
does. And it makes sense for her to do so. And folks will
Yes,
have to read to see why, but
she is
yes.
fully justified.
Yes. And then also another thing that you're balancing is like the actual romance element because things could be
Mhm.
funny and you have the darker themes, but if you don't believe that the main characters should be together, then that kind of falls apart. But you definitely believe that they should be together, even
Thank you,
before
I'm
they're
glad.
like trying to like admit it. So, what were some things that you wanted to make true of Bianca and Benny's characters for it to feel like, yes, these are two people who met randomly, very randomly, but we know that they should be together?
Yeah, well, with Bianca, I wanted her to be headstrong and like take no crap off of anybody. With Benny, he's like that by default because he's like, you know, the head of his crime family. I wanted them to be sexually attracted to each other because when she wakes up in his bed, there's multiple cases of mistaken identity. They kidnapped her thinking she was somebody else, and then because an escort was coming to his house that happened to have the same name as her and she was already unconscious, they assumed that she was the escort. And so naturally, or maybe not, she played her part. And she's like, okay, there's money and I'm going to get paid how much? I hope he doesn't look like Danny DeVito, no disrespect to him, but I'll knock one back and then like take the money and run. And I wanted two headstrong dynamics, but I also wanted Benny to bend. And what does it look like when you have a curiosity about a woman who like steps to you in a way that nobody else does because they're all afraid of you? And I always want my guys to fall first, whether they know that they're doing it or not. And so culturally, one place to connect is food, especially when you talk about like Sicilian or Italian culture. And
Mhm.
because he is his grandmother's child or grandson, him cooking for her when he gives her his gun so that she feels comfortable
Mhm.
and like doing little things to show that he cares. And I also liked him respecting her and her position as a HR manager because she comes from a world, especially as a black woman, where she's underworked and overstressed, and she couldn't even get a promotion after 3 or however many years.
Mhm.
And Benny realizes her background and like wants to set her up to help him find a rat amongst his mafia world. And what does that look like in trusting black women in real time? And so I like their dynamic. I like their banter. I love the things that they didn't say, but what they felt in real time. And then I love like the little soft moments of them each conceding to each other, but especially Benny conceding to Bianca and what that looks like with an equally balanced relationship, even though they're from completely different worlds.
Yeah, and he also has a lot of past baggage. So
Yeah,
when you see him bending a little bit, it's like, oh, I see what's happening here.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
makes it feel a little bit more, you get the swoons and the good feelings when you see him like just allowing her to do her thing, even when
Hmm.
he should not be sometimes.
Yes, yes.
One thing I really appreciated was you also played a lot into the setting that they're in. So they're in
Hmm.
Sicily or Italy for the
Hmm.
majority of it.
Hmm.
And it feels like I was there. I was like, I need to find
Oh,
some lemon
good.
groves to run,
Please, and take me
to,
with you.
yeah, to run amongst. As you were thinking about this story and then them together, why did you want to set it there? Because he could have been potentially a mafia boss in New York and still had Sicilian background or something. So why did you
Yeah.
want to take them to Sicily?
Well, I wanted, well, so mafia or mafioso, depending if you're speaking Sicilian or Italian, which I probably butcher both, like the origins of mafia come from Sicily.
Mm,
That is the home of the mafia. The bratva for Russians and other folks, like we call them mafia in contemporary times, but the mafia are a specific number of like Sicilian crime families. The Cosa Nostra, which if you watch The Godfather, it's sort of based off of that being number one. So I wanted to take it back to its roots, which is why it's based in Sicily. Also, somewhere up on my daddy's side of the tree, like we have Black Sicilians in
mm,
our heritage, and like I don't know any of them. So maybe if I see somebody with a forehead and we kind of look alike, maybe it's a cousin. I don't know.
yes.
So I thought that that would be a special touch. I love Black love, that's across the diaspora.
Mhm.
And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to seed it in Sicily. I also really want to go to Sicily. So this was a really cool project to work on. Um, and so, yeah, a lot of the stuff in the book, even though it's unserious and it's fiction, runs parallel to real stuff. So the Preda, which is the primary enemy or entity that Sal is fighting against, and that's the backstory, is that the Preda crime family was the one responsible for murdering his parents.
Mhm.
And that's based off of the Cosa Nostra. And then Benny's crime group, and there's different families. They're independent, but they're all a part of a network. The Solari is based off of the Stida in real life, which was sort of the outcast back in the day of the Cosa Nostra, who formed their own group and they went toe to toe, and there were actually mafia wars. So even how his parents died, and a prosecutor, it was either a judge or a prosecutor, I would have to look back at what I wrote, being blown up on their motorway or interstate, like happened in real life in the mafia war. And so I really wanted to like get it back to its roots. I wanted to tie some of my real life roots to it. And then Sicily is just so beautiful. There was a lot of material to work there, like with the citrus groves and looking at like real properties to describe Sal's house or houses in some of the places that they went to. And even some of the traditions and how they talk and what they drink and what they eat. It felt like a good vacation. And it's like, I already been to New York City and I go to New York City a lot. So I love it. I love
Yes.
it. But
Yes.
I wanted to do something different and also make it black because Sal is a part of an all black mafia group that is fighting against the biggest one.
Mhm. And they have very specific rules as well. So like there's certain things that they won't do, and there's like a running theme about like how he's supporting migrants and those who are trying to
Mm-hmm.
like move into Sicily.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, I'm trying to think what it was called. I want to say it was like basically like a rule against like human trafficking. And then
Yeah.
that's a theme, running theme within it. So it's like, yes, people might be hanging from the rafters, but there are certain things that are just like, no, non-negotiable. We don't do those things,
Yes.
which I think
Yes.
also contributes to like his turn into more of a cinnamon roll when Bianca
Mm-hmm.
comes into the picture, because he already has like those set of values as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was another thread too, like migrant smuggling. And even what does it look like when people are going to troubled waters because the shore isn't safe? And especially like black migrants as well. I mean, this all happened and is happening in real life. And there is a juxtaposition or parallel between how migrants have been treated because Italy right now is very right and conservative. And compare that to like the United States and what we see now with people being disappeared and how we other people who are coming into this country. So that was another thing that I wanted to show a parallel to, but also bring it back to like the global scale.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely appreciated that in there. And there's also a running theme of being open to love. There's a variety
Mm-hmm.
of reasons why Bianca and Benny are resistant initially,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just like, okay, we can just, roll around. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where we'll leave it. Why was that important for you to include based on what you wanted just to display with those characters?
Yeah, like, well, there has to be a happily ever after. So hopefully they're in love. Um, but they both needed love for different reasons. Bianca had love through found family. I feel like she had the most stable background, but she was so busy trying to do everything and be everything for a corporate job that never respected her that she could have been dating. And she kind of did to a certain degree, but like she burnt herself out and never gave herself the time to be loved of a love that she deserves. And then Benny, because of the trauma that he's carried since losing his parents at a young age, close himself off to it. And he loves his grandmother and she sees glimpses of him, but like it took Bianca to unlock that part of them. So they were each other's missing keys.
Hmm.
And I loved seeing how they pulled that out while still like hunching under the ceiling mirror or, him eating her box in a headstand. Because why not?
I
So,
feel like a counter was involved at some point as well.
mhm.
Definitely things going on with them. And then also speaking of found family, there are very fun supporting characters on her side and then on his side. What did you want to showcase with those supporting characters, as like we're still focused on Bianca and Benny and like their love story and then all the shenanigans that are happening? What are some things that you wanted to showcase by adding them into?
Yeah, well, that love can look very different and it doesn't always have to be romantic. And so I wanted to show love between family. I wanted to show love between found family because Bianca doesn't know her biological family, and also best friends too. Like Stephanie, Bianca's best friend, that's a hat tip because my childhood best friend from Baltimore, her name is Stephanie, and that was like my ride or die. I won't say what we was doing outside, but we definitely threw hands together when we needed to, whipping
And
up on some
Stephanie in
boys.
the book was ready to do whatever. So
Yes, no questions asked.
yes,
She just needed to know where she needed to be.
yes.
Um, but I thought it was important for balancing, and then sometimes you're so focused or in your own head that it's hard to see out. And so having a counterpoint who knows you to also remind you of what you're worth or to like let your guard down. And so I really enjoyed them. Also Andrea too, Benny's guy friend, and just sort of the dynamics of blending the your found family and people together.
Yeah. And when I was reading this one, there's somebody who pops up that I should have expected to pop up. And then I was like, hold on, wait a minute.
Yes.
So I loved that one. And just like just thinking about your literary universe of how you have the different players and how they operate together in the stories and then outside the stories as well. So that was a very nice treat because I was like, hold on a
Nice.
second.
It's him.
Yes, yes.
He coming to get
Um,
grandma.
yes. Any, I know this is supposed to be a standalone, but any thoughts on revisiting Sicily or taking a trip there and you could write it off for another book of any
You
sort of
know,
shenanigans?
that's what I need to do because as I was writing this book, I'm like, I need to go out for milk, leave my family, go to Sicily for research, write it off to Uncle Sam, and then just be amongst the people. And I actually was, as an aside, I was like Instagram DMing some Sicilian companies because I'm like, is this how you say stuff? Meanwhile, I'm using Google Translate and I'm like, this is choppy. And they're like, just speak English to us. And I was like, of course. So
Yeah.
I do need to go to Sicily. From some of the early readers, they're like, okay, this is a standalone, but when are you going to give us something else? I will say, I have been writing in my Patreon a small town black romance, because that's what I write, but small town rivals to lovers
Mhm.
sort of serial that will eventually become a series, but not till like the 2030s. And there is definitely an idea I'm seeing more than once, which means I'll catalog it, of somebody from the Solari who pops up in this black small town, which is based in central New York,
Mm.
and what that dynamic could look like. So you won't
Okay.
go to Sicily, but you will get a taste of mafia in a small town.
Okay. That sounds fun. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I know you have other things that are happening for that before that happens. So I'll be excited to see how that works, especially if we're mixing small town and mafia. That could get
Mm-hmm.
very interesting very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Especially if the mafia person gets kidnapped, because we normally
uh,
see the power dynamic with the mafia person. So what if they get kidnapped in a small
mm,
town?
That would be cool. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
How do you want, once they are able to finally read Big Trouble and a Little Mafia, how do you want them to feel after finishing Bianca and Benny's story?
I want them to feel like they sat through a really good movie
Mm,
that brought everything full circle because in many ways it does. If you read my books, you know I love a twist. And I try to snatch an edge or two and take a wig off towards the 70-80%. So you could expect that here. Um, but it definitely found family is definitely the highlight.
mhm,
Found family with romance and all the other things, but just how you don't know how much a person or people have loved you, even if you never met them before, and the lengths that they'll go to protect you.
mhm.
Um, I would love for people to take that away. And then also like the Michael Bay exit when we blow up a house.
Yes, yeah. And then you too, if you are an HR manager, can use your skills if and when you are called to
Yes, but don't
lead
use your
other
keyboard.
organizations.
Put your keyboard down. Don't whack your boss with a
Right,
keyboard.
right, exactly. It, like you mentioned, so this will be your upcoming release, but then you have another release that's happening in December. So the second book in the Buffalo Steel Rugby series. What made you want to shift into, because we had the Chance of Love series, what made you want to shift into sports romances?
Well, so I was a long time rugby wife. My husband is an engineer by day, but he's played rugby and thankfully he hung up, I cannot talk. He hung up his cleats this year
Mm,
and it has been 23 years. So his ass is old and he should have done that a long time ago, but I digress. So I knew I was going to do a sports romance and I wanted to get rugby out the gate because I seeded it in Elegance the D.
mm,
Um, if you read that, then you know Julian is a lawyer and he plays rugby on the side, and Antonio is his best friend, who is the main male character in One Night Stand. And so the setup was there, but also shout out to um, Coco the librarian, who's a buddy of mine, because after she read Ella, she was like, "Okay, so are we going to get a novella of Antonio?" Because and I'm like, you know what? We will start the rugby series because the runway is there. So that's how it happened.
yeah, and I appreciate, because I don't know anything about rugby except seeing some like sweaty images online or anything like that. So I have no idea about the rules or anything like that. But I think One Night Stand does a great job of introducing you to the sport. Like you get enough information so you understand what's happening.
Oh,
Um,
good.
but it's not in a way where you're like, wait, do I need to look up rules? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
any of that sort of thing. And Miriam and Antonio were just so fun together. She's my favorite. Just
Thank you. I enjoyed her. I enjoyed
yeah.
a quirky person. And she's also elements. I put elements of my husband in my book, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put elements of him in the FMC. So like Antonio's position flanker is what my husband played. It was his position for the bulk of rugby. But like my husband's Black Panamanian. I've kind of been get fussed out by my family on that side, my in-laws. I'm like, I'm gonna put them in here. And then her having a master or sorry, PhD in mechanical engineering. My husband has a master's in systems engineering. And so there were like a lot of parallels. But I wanted to do STEM for her. So
Mm,
she was fun. A lot of fun to write.
yes. Yes. And I appreciate having a clumsy representation as well, because I'll trip over anything. So
Same, especially in a heel. That's why I
yeah,
wear sneakers.
yes. Exactly. The closer I can get to the ground, the better for everybody involved.
That part.
So, and then, like you said, you craft nothing but cinnamon roll men, and Antonio was just so sweet and so fun to read. But then in the second book, we have Miriam's sister and her
Mhm,
love story. So, can you give us any
mhm.
insight on the madam and her hooker?
Yeah. So the madam it's not a BDSM book. We might dabble in that in the third book. So that's a little bit of a
Okay.
scoop. I feel like I'm leaning that way with Kendrick, because Kendrick and Reese's book will be book three. But
Mhm.
the Madam is based on Marcella being the interim mayor of Buffalo. And so, how our politics work out here is that if you are the city council president, at least out here in Buffalo, and if for whatever reason the mayor resigns, or maybe in this case there's a scandal and they're, let out of their house in handcuffs, then
Mhm.
whoever the council president is will become interim mayor until it's election year for the mayoral race, and then they got to go through primaries and all of that. And so chapter one starts out with Marcella riding a man because that she enjoys her physical activities outside of city limits
Mhm.
and is comfortable in all of her, goodness. And she finds out from getting multiple text messages, including from her sister. If you read Ella Gets the D because it's the universe, then Erica will make a quick cameo, just because they're all from the same area after Miriam and Marcella moved from Panama. And so, yeah, she's riding dingaling when she sees the breaking news that the mayor is being arrested, which means that she's up to bat to be the interim mayor. And she really didn't want that position, but obviously will make the decision to like lean into it because she has a choice on whether or not she's going to officially race or
Mhm.
run in the race. And there will be somebody from her past that you read about, the Senator Sneaky Link, who will make appearances to try and get power. And then I was very surprised because even before I announced the title, and people knew Marcella was up next, and
Mhm.
I teased that it was somebody from One Night Stand, I was surprised that people like caught that it was Darius, because he is only really mentioned in like a short chapter when
Mhm.
he's working out with Antonio. And so Darius is all about being a single dad. Eris, his daughter, is now 11. And so he has to balance rugby full time, which one of the things I wanted to seed in One Night Stand, and I will with this series, is that, rugby in the US is not glamorous. On average, the salary cap is around 45,000 a year.
Mhm.
It doesn't include like year-round health insurance, and there's all these different things that I won't get into. And so he has to provide as the only parent in his child's life. And so he balances that with co-owning a construction business and also working nights, which you'll see more in this book, the rugby team stepping up and like helping to take care of Eris when he needs to work. And so he's never really had a life outside of fatherhood and rugby. And so him and Marcella have very different parallels, and they cross paths, and it's like, and then there are situations that put them together because she has to go to Albany, the capital here in New York State, and he has to go because Reese, who's the comms person for this deal, is like, we need more publicity and we want you front and center. And we have a mayor who we know now, and she's gonna like talk about the steal. And so there's not forced proximity, but there's a lot of close proximity that creates opportunities to possibly hunch at a gala in a old historic theater, that kicks off their romance.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see that, and I'm trying to think because in reading One Night Stand, I did notice Darius as well, but I'm trying to remember why he stood out to me. I don't know. Maybe it was just in some sort of way in which he's having a conversation with Antonio about what's going on with him. I don't know. But I'm excited to read more of him and see how this connection goes. And I'm sure there'll be twists, like you mentioned. You like to include a
Oh
twist.
yeah. This one will be a big one, and I've been telling people because this book has been a struggle for me to write, and it's due September 7th. I gotta give it to the developmental editors. And it's been hard because out of all of my books, this one is the closest to my politics and my policy in real life. So I'm talking about city council people who like I know and the dynamics of the political landscape out here and a very controversial bill that's super progressive that I was a part of helping push to become state law will be seated in this. So I'm like, oh, I gotta watch how I write this shit because I don't want to
Mm,
be sued. But also, this one is an age gap where he's 12 years younger.
mhm,
But as Jill Scott said, if you could tell me what to do, you could tell me what to do. And if you
mhm.
can't tell me what to do, you can't tell me what to do. And he knows how to tell her what to do. So it's an interesting power shift. And really her soft side will come out when it comes to love because she doesn't believe in that. But he brings it out and they bring things out of each other.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to witness based on what we know about Marcella in One Night
Mm-hmm.
Stand and how she approaches how she approaches things. So to see her be like, okay, I guess we'll do what you say will be really
Yeah.
to read.
Shuts her right up in the
Yeah.
good way. He's
Yes.
not trying to control, but sometimes it's good to submit a little bit.
Hmm. And I think you mentioned before that you envisioned this series being 7 books for the
Yes.
Rugby series. I'm not asking for any outlines for the other 5 potentially, but are there any specific tropes or elements that you're thinking you may want to include as the series progresses?
Yeah. So book 2 will be Marcella and Dee. That will be he's a single dad. So that's been fun to write that trope and 12-year age gap where he's younger. I think because rugby players by default are normally in their 20s or at the latest in their prime at 30,
Hmm.
the remaining books will likely have to be age gaps where she's older just because I gotta work with what I gotta work.
Yes.
Um, book 3 will be Kendrick, who's our quiet and short king, with Reese, who will be our high functioning anxiety coffee queen. And a lot of her personality will be mean because I have high functioning anxiety. So a
Hmm.
lot of times I operate like I am sniffing some white powder as a squirrel. Um, I'm entertaining some quiet dom, soft dom situations with that one, and maybe some switch things. Book 4 will likely be Shins and
Hmm.
his Regina Hall lookalike, and that one's still a little murky. Book 5 will be Bread, and I want to make a woman an assistant coach. So I'm leaning towards workplace romance
Hmm.
and forbidden romance. Her being a single mom, him being a hoe, and them maybe waking up in Vegas accidentally married and trying to put together the pieces since the rugby team goes to Vegas every year. Um, and then book 6 and 7, I don't know who will end it, but I definitely want to do something with Coach Titan
Mm.
because he's like looks like Rick Fox, but he's a dickhead and just mean. So that'll be a grumpy sunshine.
Mm.
And then oh my gosh, who is that black boxer who fought Jake Paul? Anthony Johnson? I think it's him. I think it's him. I want to look alike but somebody from overseas who's obviously black and he has a chip on his shoulder, was like a bad boy, and the only way that he could play rugby is for what he considers to be this random Buffalo team. And I have no idea who he's going to be linked up
Mhm.
with. And that will be the 7 books in the series.
Okay. It's definitely something for everyone. Like, of course, you
Yes.
have to love Black romance, like, that's a given.
You have to love
But
it. Yes.
but definitely a mix of different elements and tropes. That'll be really fun. As you're thinking about just like your work and this literary universe you're creating, what are elements that you want to be true no matter which book somebody picks up?
Mm. I think I'm officially in my rom-com area or era. The Chance of Love series to me is not rom-com. I mean, there's some funny stuff in it, but I didn't. it doesn't follow certain beats for it to be a rom-com, but I think everything else since then will be, and stuff moving forward will be.
Mm-hmm.
I will always write an FMC that will be mid 30s to 40s. And as I keep getting older, I turn 42 this September, they'll likely be in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I will always write a man who falls first, a cinnamon roll on a spectrum. So you might get a grumpy one who's grumpy to everybody else, but likes you.
Mm-hmm.
You might get somebody that kills somebody. You might get somebody that might tie you up and do some things to you. And I want also people to know me by like witty banter, some good tension, lots of hunching, and I might make you cry and reading the epilogue,
Mm.
which is something I heard. I don't try and do that on purpose, but if it happens, sorry.
The epilogue for Big Trouble in Little Mafia was really sweet, and then there was a twist in there too, because I was like, hold on,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, wait, what's happening? Which I should already expect when I'm reading your work, that there might be a twist, even when I think all the twists have twisted. There might still be something else that pops up. And I know you said like you primarily read Black indie romance, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what you are writing. Any thoughts on doing like a love story and not a romance, or like
Mm.
flexing into any other genres or areas?
I think the only thing that interests me, because like romance is so big, you
Mm,
can do all of the different things here in romance. Like I will spin the block with sports romance. Not, I need to take a break after this, especially with 7 books. But like MMA is my background. And so
mm,
I want to do something there. But if I was to dabble outside of romance, I don't know if I could ever write women's fiction because I want them to end up with somebody at the end.
yeah.
But I do want to do political thrillers to like kill people and be serious about that shit.
Mm,
Especially on the policy front. So there's some policy, political, suspense thriller stuff I could see myself doing.
hmm.
When I get older, to get a little bit more distance from the
Yeah.
folks I know who I might kill in the book.
Yes. Or even if you still wanted to stay in romance, maybe it could be romantic suspense, you know. It could go
Yeah.
that way too, depending on what happens.
I have an idea for a romantic suspense. That I've been sitting on since 2022. And it would be a duet. So there would be a
Mm,
cliffhanger, and I would have to write both books so that I could have them back to back and not get cussed out. And that one has a big twist, and
mm,
it might have a crime family element to it.
mhm.
So, you know,
Yes, the cliffhangers are controversial, and
they
there's
are.
sometimes I've stumbled into them, and I'm like, what? Now you have me stressing until whenever this next one comes out. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you thinking of that in advance. So,
Yeah, I'll write it slow, like over
yeah,
some years, so I can write both together. And
yes,
then folks can get mad, and then it's like, surprise, the other one's gonna come out in like 4 months.
yeah. I would appreciate that as opposed to it being like a year and it's like, wait, hold on. I don't know if
Or
I can
maybe you never get it.
Right, exactly. If you overheard a reader just raving about your work to someone and saying like they have to read your work, what 3 words would you want to hear them say?
Um, Unserious or shenanigans, funny and unexpected.
Okay. Yeah. I think that fits. That definitely
Okay.
fits. I agree with all of those. What excites you most about where your writing journey is headed?
Mm, just the different possibilities and opportunities. I've been very grateful because when I first released the 7 month itch, I'm like, oh, if somebody more than like my dad and my aunt who always get all of my books, which might be weird. Like if more than people I know like it, I'll be grateful. But just the opportunities to connect with people, to co-create spaces and build communities and just I'm very, very grateful. And there are some potential opportunities on the horizon
Mhm.
that could be really, really good. So it's been an incredible journey. And for me, like this, I think it's 2.5 years. This January will be 3 years. So there's a lot looking back that I'm very grateful to have done and been a part of. And I'm excited for the additional opportunities that are presenting themselves moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely excited for you. In addition to your audiobooks that'll be coming out as well.
Mhm.
So that's another opportunity for more readers to cackle and swoon and do all of the things and be able to experience your work. What is the best way for readers to support you?
Oh, geez. Well, if you read the book, don't pirate it. Please and thank you. If you read on Kindle Unlimited, the page reads help. I try to make my books affordable. If you buy the ebooks, that helps. If you buy the paperbacks, that helps. You can also buy them direct if you want me to sign them. And I always try to sign like something specific to the book, and I could put your name in it and you get some goodies.
Mhm.
And reviewing helps, especially if you liked it. And, just indulging in shenanigans because I show my forehead a lot online and I also run my mouth too much, especially on threads. So, and also Patreon too is another area. There are different tiers. So, if you want exclusive things and never before seen things, I share a lot of random stuff there to the point where I'm like, am I sharing too much? Just with like consistency. Like I said, I have the cereal there, and then there's certain tiers where you'll get like a book box that's different than PR boxes that goes out with some different things in it. Um, and like we have a time. So take your poison and come enjoy the shenanigans and get the pages.
Yes, definitely. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes.
Everyone, Big Trouble in a Little Mafia will be released on July 31st.
Mhm.
So go ahead and grab that. It is a great time. And to connect with Tanvier on social media, you can follow her on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok at Tanvier Writes. And I'm just so glad to have had a chance to chat with you today.
Thank you. This is so much fun. It was so great to be in virtual space with you.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. Bye.